Okay guys, Scripture will be here with another video. And it's the toxic fandom time. How Hollywood is battling fans who are just out for blood, from social media boot camps to superfan focus groups. Oh man. And it's funny, like, they know exactly what they're doing, right? They know what they're trying to trigger. Like, look at the picture that they made for this. Like, they put Brie Larson, who made her stupid comments. Whatever, the kiss that probably bugged a few people, but whatever. Amanda Stenberg, obviously. I don't even know what this is from, but I'm suspicious that it's probably like a historical piece from Europe where they replaced some people with some black people. and then the black elf. They know exactly what they're doing when they do this. It's funny because they're probably going to accuse YouTubers in this article of doing clickbait stuff, and meanwhile this is like total clickbait. So it's we'll see what they say here, but I almost guarantee that they're gonna make those accusations, and then this is their big photo, and this was all over Twitter, of course. August 28th, Amanda Stenberg, the lead of the Star Wars series The Acolyte, posted an 8.5-minute video on her Instagram story about Lucasfilm's abrupt decision not to pick up the show for a second season just a month after season 1 finale streamed on Disney+. And of course she attached it to the election, and she sort of insinuated that conservatives are Nazis. And the whole time when you watch the video, it looks like she's looking down and reading off of notes, like bullet points. So I'm sure somebody gave that to her. I'm not going to read what a huge shock to me, blah, 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 blah. We started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol. No receipts. Just say that. I think they showed like 5 semi-bad tweets on Twitter or like her Instagram thing. It's like, dude, like, I got 1,000 people posting, and those 4 guys are ruining my life. In other words, the Acolyte was the latest high-profile target of toxic fandom, the catch-all term for when fan criticism curdles from good faith dissatisfaction into a relentlessly negative, often bigoted, online campaign against either the project or its stars or creative leaders. I just want to say, from my perspective, the only bigoted stuff I see, if you want to call it a campaign, is like literally a handful of people with almost no followers. It'll be people that are desperate to get clicks. They've had an account for who knows how long, a year, 2 years, and they've got like 5 followers, and they're trying to rile people up to try and get attention. That's literally what it is. And Amanda Stenberg knows that. All these actors, they all know that. They're just using this as like a springboard to project the idea that, you know, the America's racist or whatever. White people are all racist. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon established audience devotion to drive the bottom line, well, yeah, because they don't know how to write anything. Whose fault is that they don't write anything new? And when they do write things that are new, like Rebel Moon, they suck. The threat of toxic fandoms poisoning that enthusiasm has become a seemingly intractable headache for almost every studio, and it's only getting worse. Well, because isn't there a certain amount of responsibility that the studios have to take? Like, why does Variety and all these media outlets back the studios by never saying, like, maybe part of the reason you guys are the recipient of all this criticism is because you haven't written anything interesting or fun or good in such a long time, or so few things, that this is what you're going to get. And then you're using these franchises that have been around for decades to push your viewpoints instead of honoring them, like Peter Jackson did, right, with Lord of the Rings. Now you've got Rings of Power that's pushing some other person's viewpoint other than Tolkien. Maybe if he took some responsibility instead of blaming all the time, maybe if Amanda Stenberg took some responsibility for how bad The Acolyte is instead of blaming everybody else. The fact of the matter is, if something's good, it's good. And if it's not good, it's not good. And people are going to say what their opinion is. So get over it. It comes with the territory, but it's gotten incredibly loud in the past couple of years, says a veteran marketing executive at a major studio. People are just out for blood regardless. They think the purity of the first version will never be replaced, or you've done something to upset the canon of a beloved franchise, and they're going to take you down for doing so. Okay, did you do something to upset the canon? Did you? Because if you did, then you did. And it's not about taking you down for doing so. But if you did change things and lore and uprooted canon in, as you're putting it, beloved franchises, then people are going to get mad at you. This is not hard. This is not rocket science. Turning things into what you want them to be instead of what they are or always have been is a stupid move if you're trying to draw in audiences. If you're trying to draw in audiences for Rings of Power, you don't completely uproot what Lord of the Rings is, changing lore, changing dates, changing when certain characters are supposed to be alive, and then on top of it, throwing in your DEI stuff. Are people just supposed to just sit there? It's just like, it's the consume,
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
And none of these people want to take responsibility for anything. Sometimes toxic fandoms behave reactively. A House of Dragon episode featured 2 female characters kissing, and an episode of The Last of Us focused on a gay couple were both review bombed. The practice of mobbing sites like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb with negative user reviews, which gained mainstream attention following The Last Jedi. And an entire YouTube ecosystem is devoted to declaring projects like The Marvels and The Boys woke garbage. Are they woke? Like, it feels like you guys are purposely putting this stuff in there. It's not like you're doing it by accident. So, what do you think's going to happen? Now, as far as the House of Dragon thing, I don't think it got review bombed for that. Everyone who watches Game of Thrones knows you're going to get stuff like that. So the idea that is why it got review bombed. It probably got bad ratings because it was bad. It's probably a crappy episode. That's what I'm going to guess. As far as this goes, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know why anyone would care. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But again, assuming that's why it got bad reviews, I mean, show me receipts. Show comments. Show some review comments that say that that's the reason it got a bad review. Right? They never do that. They just say. And again, if is it woke? I don't know. The Last Jedi got negative reviews because it made people mad because they wrecked Luke Skywalker. It wasn't like, hey guys, it's not like they all got together and were like, hey guys, let's go review bomb it because we have no reason. No, they were mad because you wrecked Luke Skywalker and made him a bum. Which goes back to the previous point. People are going to get mad when you change lore and wreck stuff. That's what they do. People get mad. Luke was not a bum in the EU. Right? He wasn't a bum in the OT. You made him a bum. And then he made it even worse with the stupid Book of Mando episodes and Book of Boba Fett, where he makes Grogu choose, which was the total antithesis to the plot of the original trilogy and what happens with him. So is it garbage? And is it woke? And maybe that's why people are complaining? Just a thought? I mean, maybe take some responsibility. Just as frequently, the backlash begins before the project has seen the light of day. A Reddit mega thread dedicated to outrage over Bridgerton casting a black woman as the love interest for Francesca. Social media epithets directed at the actors of color cast as elves and dwarves in The Lord of the Rings and The Ring of Power. Death threats aimed at Leslie Jones during the press tour for Ghostbusters. The Bridgerton one, I have no clue. As far as casting actors of color, by the way, I remember back in the day, calling people of color was considered bad. Now all of a sudden it's back to good again somehow. Yeah, because the elves weren't black. I mean, that's just the way it is. I'm sorry. You went against the lore, so you take some responsibility. There are races of color in the Lord of the Rings, but they're not elves, and they're not in a ton of the stories. I think they're in a couple of them, but they're not in the areas that they're putting them in the Lord of the Rings show, in the Rings of Power show. So if you change that, people don't like that. It's not that they don't want a black guy in Lord of the Rings. They want the black guy in Lord of the Rings that's the guy that was written as a black guy in Lord of the Rings, not some other guy. That's the issue. So again, Take some responsibility for what you did. As far as the Leslie Jones thing, the furthest thing I know about that is I know Milo Yiannopoulos made some comments that he went too far. But at the same time, the women that were acting in this were basically bashing fans, and it takes some responsibility there too. Like, and again, I have to see receipts. If you're going to say there's death threats and you're going to write an article Variety, show us the receipts. Because how are we supposed to really know? We're just supposed to take your word for it? I know she got made fun of, and I know Milo took it pretty far, but I didn't see death threats. So if somebody did that, that's really bad. Go after that person, fine. But it's probably, again, like I said earlier, it's probably like the 5 people out of over 1,000 comments. And again, they've got like 3 followers and they're just trying to get attention because nobody cares. And they've been on there for like a year or 2 and no one cares. That's generally who does that. Anyone with any kind of profile that does that, you hear about it and they end up getting blasted. So again, how seriously are we taking this? I don't know. Perhaps the greatest irony of this phenomenon is the disproportionate impact that these toxic fandoms have relative to their actual number. Oh, they're gonna give more credit to them for things. The vast majority of any fandom are casual fans, says John Van Sitters, VP of Star Trek brand development, who has been with the storied franchise since the 90s. I think he's right, but he's also wrong. From a brand like Star Trek, for example, there's a lot of casual fans, sure, but when something's been around as long as Star Trek, there's a lot more non-casual fans, percentage-wise, than, say, some random TV show, right? So it's been around so long. There's been so many shows. There's people that have watched it for decades. So, and again, like I said, I think the percentage of people that are hardcore fans in, say, Star Trek, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, whatever, is higher than, say, the hardcore fan of The Last of Us, right? Same, because again, they've been around so long, and they're cultural influences. They're culturally iconic. The number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. Again, I disagree. Not on these big IPs. And then those who come after, things that they espouse to love with Venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of the fandom. It's much easier to see it now. I don't know that it's really that much broader than where things were in 1995. It's just the bullhorn wasn't there. Well, and there's also communication, though, John. If you go to a Nerdrotic video or a Critical Drinker video, and they are criticizing a episode of a TV show, for example, Rings of Power. Let's bring up Rings of Power again, okay? Go to the comment section. There's a lot of people that agree with them. A lot of people. If they were just speaking into, an empty container, then there'd be no responses. There'd be no views of their videos. There's a lot of people that agree with them. That's why they watch their videos, to hear their opinion. And again, if you go to the comments, most of the comments are in agreement, because people are ticked off of what you guys are doing. And I think it's ironic that this guy's the Star Trek guy, because Star Trek's just been obliterated the last few years. What was that cartoon with all that weird stuff in it? Oh, it's just... Anyway, so... Yeah, again, no responsibility and completely off. See, he's saying this because he doesn't want to take responsibility for the fact that Star Trek had a lot of hardcore fans, and he's basically took a dump on them. And but no, there's not really that many. It's just these 3 guys, and then people go watch their videos, and that influences them. It's not me. It's not my fault that I wrecked the brand. It's everybody else's fault. That's again, this is just a giant pity party for people who don't want to take responsibility. For some, combating that bullhorn amounts to acting as if they can't hear it, particularly when it's a negative, toxic conversation we don't even engage. Well, what do you define as that? Is a negative, toxic conversation just people saying that your show sucks and giving objective reasons? Is that why? Is that toxic to you? I think it is, because after all this time, this 10, 15 years of them just spewing garbage all over the place, they're still doing it. So obviously, that's what they're talking about. Or they would have made adjustments. So they don't engage in criticism, is what he should have said. In criticism, not not toxic conversation. It's not toxic to criticize somebody. Here we go. A toxic comment is defined as a rude, disrespectful, or profane comment that makes other people uncomfortable, leading to leaving the discussion. So that could, in other words, there's no definition. I found that rude because it said what I did wasn't good. That's essentially all these are saying the same thing. The person's fault. Yeah, in other words, it's all about I don't like what you said. It hurt my fifis, therefore it's toxic. It's so open-ended of a definition that it can mean anything. So in other words, you just don't want to listen to criticism. And you're a TV marketing executive and you're failing and you're blaming everybody else. Like with toxic people. You try to not give it too much oxygen. Well, obviously, that's why all these shows are going down the toilet, bro. One principal concern is they're reacting to these kinds of attacks risks alienating fans who are unhappy with creative choices about a franchise, but haven't tipped over into abusive behavior. So you guys are a bunch of psychologists now?
We need to stop looking for people or corporations to blame for why something isn't the same way that it was for us when we were younger, because it's never going to be that way. Because we had a different worldview then.
Loyalty to Disney. Loyalty to the brand. Loyalty is salvation. Loyalty is life.
Like, the arrogance of people in Hollywood is beyond words. They do all this like fan behavior prediction stuff. This has been going on for a long time, and this goes back to when Disney bought Star Wars, okay? And they specifically discussed, and Dave Filoni was on board with this, everything else. They specifically discussed how they didn't want Luke to have a major role because if he had a major role, then people won't care about Rey. But this is the kicker. But if we diminish Luke's role, the audience will gravitate to Rey. So they're trying to be psychologists in a way, and I get that there's a certain degree of that when you're writing a story, but they're dumb because actually that backfired and went the opposite. The audience hated Rey more and hated what they did to Luke more and hated Disney Star Wars for what they did to Luke. They're very arrogant in the way that they think that fans behave and think that fans are going to think. And the funny part about that is if they had made Luke go out awesomely and then passed the baton properly instead of just being a bum, people probably would have liked Rey a lot more. But they didn't. So a studio may attempt to amplify friendlier voices instead. We'll reply to comments that are positive and elevate those things. Yeah. In other words, it's really not about toxic. It's just, are they positive comments or negative comments? So he's admitting it basically anyway, that it's just about they don't want to hear people criticizing their crappy work. That's essentially what it comes down to. And what's hilarious is when you're always focusing on only positive. If you create something and you've got a group over here criticizing it and you've got a group over here saying positive and you completely ignore the critical for years and years and years and years and years and you keep creating things, eventually you're going to just keep creating crappy things. And there's just going to be this massive swath of people that don't like it because you're never listening to them. You're not giving them a voice. So then you're not giving them a voice, right? You're not listening to them. Remember when they listened to the fans about Sonic and they changed how he looked and it was really good and everybody liked that? Yeah, remember that? Yeah, that's called being smart. When you don't give these people a voice, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to go to Nerdrotic, they're going to go to Geeks and Gamers, they're going to go to whoever, and they're going to find that group of people that they relate to, or those YouTubers that they relate to, or those websites that they relate to. What do you expect them to do? You don't want to interact with them. You don't want to acknowledge anything that you did was ever wrong. So what are they going to do? They're going to go and roast it because they have no other option because you don't care. You don't care what you do. And you don't want to take any responsibility. Again, Sonic. They took responsibility. They admitted it looked like crap and they changed it. So they listened to negative comments and it ended up making them a ton of money because they listened. You guys don't want to. There you go. Why are our shows losing money? Like, why do you think? Because you don't listen to anybody except the people that stroke your ego. Pretty simple stuff. Still, toxic, let's replace that with still negative feedback from fandoms have grown so pernicious that they've become a fact of life for many, and so powerful that while talent, executives, and publicists will privately bemoan the issue, fear of inadvertently triggering another backlash kept several studios from speaking for this story even on background. As one rep put it, it's just a lose-lose. No, you just don't want to admit if you made just admit you made a mistake. Imagine for a second, guys, if Dave Filoni stood up, or KK, they stood up and they admitted, you know what, we should never have greenlit The Acolyte. That was a mistake. We should have looked at the story and known that we were violating the prequel trilogy, that we were violating the lore, and that we were violating the Jedi and their code, and they would never cover up that type of a thing, and we should never have done what we did with having a Sith and killing all these Jedi and stuff. We're sorry. We should never have done that. Imagine if they did that. Imagine the amount of respect they would garner. But they won't, because they don't do that. They never do. And then they say it's a lose-lose. No, it would be a win if you guys admitted when you made mistakes, but you don't. Like I said, Sonic. Those who did talk with Variety all agree that the best defense is to avoid provoking fandoms in the first place. Well, you're doing that anyway. Look what the Rings of Power is. You're provoking them by wrecking the stuff that they care about. In addition to standard focus group testing, studios will assemble a specialized cluster of superfans to assess possible marketing materials for a major franchise project. Yeah, but you'll bring them in, but is it going to be all yes men? Is it going to be all the people that just praise it? Because you don't want the negative, right? You don't want to listen, so you're just bringing in people to stroke your ego, right? They're very vocal, says the studio execs. They will just tell us, if you do that, fans are going to retaliate. These groups have even led studios to alter their projects. If it's early enough and the movie isn't finished yet, we can make those kinds of changes. I don't know who these people are that are telling them this, because they're still making garbage. They're pumping out crap constantly. So I don't know who these people are. They're obviously not the right people. And this isn't the way to say it. I know it's not, because, fans are going to retaliate. If that's true, that's the rhetoric they're using, then these people aren't actually fans of these IPs. A fan of an IP would say, don't do that, it goes against the lore. Don't do that, it goes against that person's character. Don't do that because this character isn't in this age. Don't do this to Luke Skywalker because Luke Skywalker is always positive and fans don't want to see him as a recluse bum. They wouldn't say, they're going to retaliate. No. Several studio insiders say they often put their talent through a social media boot camp in some cases when a character is intentionally challenging a franchise's status quo. Studios will, with the actor's permission, take over their social media accounts entirely. What? When things get really bad, especially involving threats of violence, security firms will scrub talent information from the internet to protect them from doxing. What? Who would do that? I mean, what actor would let them do that? That can't be real. Let them take over their social media entirely? You're going to trust these other people? No chance, bub. That is so weird. When things get really bad, especially involving threats of violence. Oh, come on. Again, the 5 guys with 3 followers. All you guys have to do is just listen. Just listen. Just set your ego, put it up on the mantle for a few minutes, sit in the armchair and listen to fans. That's all you got to do. But you don't want to do that. You want to get your ego stroked. You want to be told how wonderful you are. You want to claim that you're getting these fans in to tell you not to do stuff, but then you just do it anyway. When a character is intentionally challenging a franchise's status quo. In other words, doing something stupid they shouldn't be doing that doesn't make sense. You're admitting it, and yet you're saying you're not doing that, and you're bringing in fans to prevent you from doing that, and yet you're doing that anyways. So these people are full of crap. They're just full of crap. They just have huge egos, and they don't want to accept that they're doing crappy stuff, and they don't want to listen to constructive criticism. In some particularly egregious cases, a direct response has been necessary. In 2022, after Obi-Wan Kenobi, actor Moses Ingram denounced the hundreds of racist messages sent to her about her role. I didn't see hundreds. I saw almost none. I would love to see the receipts. Again, I guarantee you it's all a bunch of like losers with no followers that were just looking for attention. And again, why would that bug you? If somebody, I've been called all kinds of names. If some guy wants to call me names on Twitter, I don't care. I don't care. Call me anything. Call me cracker. Like, I don't care. You're just some person in the ether. Social media is not real life. So who cares? There's nothing anybody can do about this. There's nothing anybody can do to stop this hate, she said. Yeah, and I know. And a lot of these actors are saying that this is happening to them, but we don't actually ever see proof of it. And if there was somebody legitimately saying something super duper racist, you can get in big trouble for that. And why wouldn't you, if you're Moses Ingram, expose that? Why wouldn't you blast them all over and say, look what this person's saying. This is disgusting. And then have everybody else be like, yeah, you're disgusting, blah, 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 blah. What do you think's going to happen? That person's going to delete their account. But they never do that. They never expose them, so you're left with this like, is this really what's happening? I don't know. But then I'm supposed to just accept it because she says it? I don't know. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know because there's no proof. Lucasfilm posted a statement to its Star Wars social media accounts that read in part, there are more than 20 million sentient species in the Star Wars galaxy. Don't choose to be a racist. Yeah, I saw that. And again, you didn't attach any proofs. The Star Wars accounts also shared a video of Obi-Wan star Ewan McGregor saying the abuse made him sick to my stomach. And that if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind. Yeah, I remember that too. And you still haven't shown any receipts. The reality of it is, guys, there probably was a handful of dummies. But people hated Reva as a character. People hated that Obi-Wan Kenobi was sidelined in his own show by her. We thought her character sucked. We criticized her crappy character. And made fun of it. And made fun of a really awful show. Where even Leia, the little girl actress, was making fun of her own show. Saying no one would ever believe that she would get out of the Inquisitor palace underneath his coat. And it was silly. Making fun of the show she's in because it's so stupid. So we made fun of Reva because she sucked. And that's the reality. And they don't want to hear that. So then they emphasize the 5 comments that maybe were borderline racist or racist. And that's what they talk about. That's what these people do. Because they don't want to face criticism. They can't accept the fact that they wrote a crappy show. Just admit it sucks. And it broke lore. Multiple times. Later that year, the cast of Rings of Power condemned the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse some of our castmates of color are being subject to on a daily basis. Receipts! And actors from the Lord of the Rings film trilogy posted photos of themselves wearing clothing featuring the ears of Middle-earth creatures in multiple skin tones underneath the message, "You are all welcome here," written in Elvish. I don't care how they responded. Show me the receipts. You never do. Those efforts may have had an effect. In an August interview with Amazon MGM Studios TV chief Vernon Sanders about Rings of Power, the executive said the show hadn't experienced the same racist hostility in advance of season 2 that had greeted its 2022 debut. And again, what are these comments? Are they just people saying, hey, why are there black elves? When Tolkien clearly wrote them as fair-skinned? Is that what it was? That's the racist comment? Hey, why are there black elves? Because they're not in Tolkien's book. Why would you guys do that? Oh, that's racist! Because I'll guarantee that is like 99% of the comments. It's people being like, why did you do this? This is stupid. People have had a chance to actually engage with the show. Overwhelmingly, what we've seen is that folks who came in with an open mind can discuss and debate their favorite things. Which takes you out of the place of that ugly conversation that happened with some folks who may have been infused with an agenda that's separate from the show itself. So again, it's just you don't want to hear criticisms. You want to be patted on the back and told how wonderful you are and given a cookie. So you're focusing on those people because you don't want to listen to criticism. That's what this is. Honestly, these people are really immature. I'm so disappointed with my generation that's now running a lot of these shows. Like the immaturity level and the snowflake level, and they can't handle even criticism at all, and exaggerate it into this big huge thing, and everybody who criticizes us is racist and bigoted. No, your shows just suck. And part of the reason you're not getting as much criticism about that in season 2 is because the people that were going to give it a chance are now gone. All the like true fans, which in Lord of the Rings is probably 40-50% is non-casual. They're probably hardcore. They're gone now. They saw what you did with season 1, and they're now gone now. So now you're getting all the positive. Way to go. You have a whole bunch of people who have no idea about Lord of the Rings lore or anything. So now you can make anything you want, and they'll gobble it up, and you'll lose money because no one's watching it. Way to go. Or half the people are watching it that watched the original premiere of season 1. Way to go. And so now you can do whatever you want. You can feel all good about yourself. You'll get all positive feedback. And you guys can all sit around and, tell each other how wonderful you are. There is one other way to handle toxic fans on the internet. Stay off it. I'm not online, so I'm protected. Says frequent Marvel star Elizabeth Olsen. WandaVision. Generally, it's a lot of positive experiences of making kids happy. I ignore other stuff. Of course, you don't. Why would you want to? Why would you want to be criticized? Why would you want to listen to critical stuff? Sonic the Hedgehog. Every time. That's the example. They don't want to hear it. They just want to be told. They just want to stay with their little focus groups and be told how wonderful they are. So anyway, all this to say, guys, these guys are the people running these IPs right now are extraordinarily weak. They can't handle anything. They can't handle criticism. I don't know if these were like kids that all grew up just spoiled and never got told no. And, I will say in previous videos, as I do a little research into the backgrounds of certain people, when they're saying that that the fans are bad and blah, 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 you start looking into where they're from and stuff, and you realize, like, you are the most privileged person ever. Whether it's Zegler, whether it's Stenberg, all these people all grew up very wealthy, very privileged, and yet claim that everybody else, that's criticizing them are just privileged white people and blah, blah, blah. It's just nuts. And it's, I guess the way to describe it ultimately is you've got an enormous amount of sociopaths in Hollywood.
I'm a narcissist.
Like, huge amount. And my generation's worse, I think, than the boomers. They're bad too. But the amount of sociopathic behavior and a hallmark of sociopathy is you cannot handle criticism. And you get emotional and you go nuts when you get criticized. And we see that with politicians, we see that with actors, we see that with everybody. Everybody that's a sociopath. They can't handle even just a little bit of criticism. They go mental. And then they make videos saying, about the toxic fandom, and they just can't stop talking about it, and it just bothers them for so long. And they're still talking about supposed tweets or supposed Instagram comments from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. They're still going on about them because they can't handle it. Their sociopathic brain, it's like, no! I've worked for sociopaths, man. They're nuts. They can't handle anything. And they exaggerate things. And which is, I think, what's happening here. They're exaggerating. They're taking these few comments and making it seem like it's everybody. And then they ignore the negative, so they never improve. They never change anything for the better. And then they embrace their little small fan bases that never cared about these franchises before. But now we can do whatever we want because we've got those people that just gobble up everything we do. Consume. Anyways, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check out everything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.